By the beginning of the special military operation, it was clear that the bet on European countries being able to be truly sovereign did not pay off. On the other hand, you could say they failed to live up to the high level of trust placed in them.
And who trusted them?
No, not Volodya. Let me repeat what I mean by trust. We offered them, and worked on this for a long time, the chance to become sovereign countries, and they simply couldn't do it.
So, according to Russian TV logic, Ukraine does not really exist, Europe is not sovereign, and Russia is so ready for peace that it spent the entire night bombing Kyiv and promises to keep going to the last Ukrainian. New week, new nonsense from Russia. I'm Sofia, and this is Spin Snipers, where we turn Kremlin drama into bite-sized reality checks. In Russia, by the usual playbook, they found yet another excuse not to negotiate with Ukraine. This time it's the illegitimacy of Ukraine's president. Yes, elections during wartime are impossible under Ukrainian law and the constitution, meant to prevent chaos, manipulations and voting under missiles. But it's rich, coming from a country where the same leader rewrites the constitution, rings elections and rules indefinitely, to lecture anyone on legitimacy. Belarus is not at war, Lukashenko wins every time, and somehow Moscow has zero concerns there.
Signing documents with the Ukrainian leadership makes no sense. I've said this many times already. I believe the Ukrainian leadership made a fundamental strategic mistake. They were afraid to hold the presidential election. After that, the president lost his legitimate status. Russia, too, is in a state of armed conflict with the same Ukraine. But we held elections, we held presidential elections, and we held elections to municipal and regional bodies. We do all of this, and they don't.
Let's be real, Russia may talk about peace, but in reality they have no intention of signing anything. Meanwhile, Ukraine is ready to negotiate, make concessions and end the war, but Russia keeps bombing cities, killing civilians and threatening the fight to the last Ukrainian. That's not a warning, it's a plan, and it's Putin's alone. So when you hear him claim Ukraine is the problem, remember, the country under attack is the one actually willing to talk about peace, while the invader is still setting the rules of war.
And those who are attacking Mr. Vitkov, those are people with a different point of view, the ones who want to steal money together with representatives of the Ukrainian establishment and keep the fighting going until the last Ukrainian. Well, as I've already said publicly, in principle, we are ready for that.
I won't get tired of bringing you the facts on why Russia doesn't want peace. On the night of November 29th, Russia shelled Kyiv and the Kyiv region. As always, sadly, there were casualties. Preliminary reports say 2 dead and 37 wounded. The Russians hit everything, all kinds of missiles, drones. In total, the alarms lasted more than 10 hours, with strikes hitting residential buildings too. And true to Moscow's style of waging war, terrorizing civilians in the middle of winter, trying to freeze people out, over 600,000 in Kyiv and the surrounding region were left without electricity. If Russia is trying to achieve anything, it's likely the total surrender of Ukraine. Talking about wanting peace? That's just absurd. Meanwhile, the Russian dictator is busy bragging about victories on the front, including the capture of the city that does not even exist.
And what's next? If you look at the map, shift your eyes a bit further east, northeast. There's Komsomolsk. And north of Komsomolsk, you have Kupiansk and Sloviansk. A bit further north, northeast, you have Siversk. In Komsomolsk, inside the city, fighting is ongoing, and a significant number of buildings have already been taken by our forces, and the advance is continuing.
Let's pause for a reality check. Putin just bragged about liberating Komsomolsk. Here is the problem. This city doesn't even exist anywhere near the front. The only place that used to be called Komsomolsk is now Horishny Plavny in Poltava region, over 300 kilometers from the fighting, far from Donetsk or Kharkiv. Analysts think he probably meant Konstantinivka, but just got it wrong. This is classic Kremlin trickery. Invent a city, claim a victory, make it look like a progress. Meanwhile, the real battles are happening elsewhere, and Ukraine still controls the region. Phantom victories like these are meant to impress the domestic audience, confuse outsiders, and give Moscow a fake sense of success. And while the Russian dictator brags about liberating cities that don't even exist, Russian propagandists suddenly start demanding security guarantees for themselves. Yes, you heard that right. Apparently, the aggressor state needs guarantees from anyone else. On the top of that, they are pushing to shrink Ukraine's army. Absurd. Either you successfully advancing and taking cities, even imaginary ones, or you're whining that you're scared and need guarantees. Only someone completely tangled in their own lies could try to have it both ways. Let's hear it straight from them.
When we talk today about signing documents that would guarantee Russia's security, the size of the army, the military capabilities of neighbouring states that are currently extremely hostile toward Russia, this is a very serious issue, and the lessons of the Winter War are extremely important for us.
America solves such issues very simply. They don't care about any treaties. They believe in their deployed military presence. And if you want to make sure that this country won't attack you, just keep their contingent on your territory, and everything will be fine. Really fine. I like guarantees like that.
But judging what we just heard, that's not enough. They want to keep their troops on Ukrainian soil. In other words, Ukraine should be occupied by Russia and turned into a Kremlin puppet state. Or, whether it should exist at all. Recently, Russian propagandists have started speaking openly, no longer hiding their true intentions.
Everything the president said regarding Ukraine and the legal impossibility of the situation means something very simple. There is no Ukraine. That's our starting point. There is no Ukraine at all. And I'll give you one more point that explains this completely. It's especially obvious now that Zelensky is firmly on the British hook. He didn't do anything Trump demanded. He said how much he loved Trump, and then they stalled the whole process with those 28 points.
If Ukraine simply does not exist as a state in Russian mind, then apparently Europe is not sovereign either. Imagine this. In Russia, they actually claimed that it was Moscow that offered European countries the chance to become sovereign. Before we dive into this nonsense, I want you to hear it straight from Russian TV.
By the beginning of the special military operation, it was clear that the bet on European countries being able to be truly sovereign did not pay off. On the other hand, you could say they failed to live up to the high level of trust placed in them.
And who trusted them?
No, not Volodya. Let me repeat what I mean by trust. We offered them, and worked on this for a long time, the chance to become sovereign countries, and they simply couldn't do it. We value the positions of individual countries. The president actually mentioned this regarding Orban. Those who act like Orban have a chance. Those who don't have no chance. It's a very simple illustration built right in. So, Europe, goodbye.
The Kremlin is at it again. Apparently they taught Europe how to be sovereign, and Europe failed. Seriously? Europe chooses its own laws, alliances and armies. No Moscow lessons required. A bit of history. Back in 2005-2007, Vladislav Surkov came up with the concept of a sovereign democracy for Russia. Basically, democracy can be whatever the Kremlin says it is. Convenient democracy for the Kremlin, probably exactly what they wanted to export to Europe. And here is the punchline. If you're like Orban, ready to bow to the Russian dictator, you trust it. Anyone else in Europe? Out. Pure absurdity and not even funny to discuss.
The main message the president sent is very simple. We will not take part in any manipulations regarding peace agreements that we're being dragged into. We are not interested in manipulations, in playing some kind of, I don't know, checkers or whatever. What matters to us is a real functioning peace process. So, Euro-Atlanticists, get off the beach.
And what does a real peace progress actually mean for Russia? Let me repeat, for them it's Ukraine's total surrender, no compromises. Donbas alone is not enough. What about Zaporizhia and Kherson, already in Russia's constitution even without full control? So take off your rose-colored glasses. Putin's goal has always been the same. He said it himself, and Russian media just repeat it.
I see two lines where some changes are possible, at least in terms of a ceasefire. Here's where it stands. First, as the president said, either you leave or we'll achieve it by force. So, we'll stop when and where we see fit. That's one. And second, it must be internationally recognized.
Meanwhile, the Russians have hatched a new idea – drag CSTO troops into the war against Ukraine. That means their so-called allies – Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Classic Moscow hypocrisy, stationing European forces in Ukraine after the war is supposedly a violation, but CSTO troops? Totally fine. They even call it a peacekeeping operation. Let's be honest, we all know what's really behind this peacekeeper label. Occupation, shelling, killing civilians. According to the UN, since the start of the full-scale invasion, over 14,000 civilians have been killed, including women and children. More than 36,000 have been injured, and that does not even include those still trapped into temporarily occupied territories. The scale of Russia's atrocities there is impossible to measure. That's what peace looks like by the Moscow standards.
I think that sooner or later, our CSTO partners will agree and make for themselves a difficult decision that they will take part in the special military operation. It's not necessary for them to participate with combat units. Peacekeeping operations, and in fact, what we're carrying out on the liberated territories as a peacekeeping operation, may involve technical units, sappers, engineering units.
That's it for today. While the Russian propaganda machine keeps running, we'll keep exposing their lies. I'm Sofia, and this was Spin Snipers. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and don't fall for the spin.